Hey guys, welcome back to Exit Music for a Film. I'm your host, Ken Perry, and today we tackle the movie event of 2019. Let's kill him properly this time. Today's episode, Avengers Endgame. This was a 3-hour cinematic event and journey, and guys, if I, leave something out, I'm sorry, but this is to be a quick breakdown of this film. The first hour of this movie is a very somber film, especially for a Marvel movie. We come in 5 years down the line after the snap that killed half the people on Earth, and are just seeing the new lives of all of our heroes on the day to day, on like what they do day to day with themselves. This is just like a desolate Earth, and it's a very somber mood throughout the first hour of this film, as everyone's in, terrible moods throughout, and just still coping with all the losses they've individually, experienced of their loved ones. And it seems to be a very, very sad time as this movie starts and opens up. Many Marvel fans had the thought and agreed that the only way that our heroes were going to be able to reverse what Thanos has done and bring back half of Earth's population from the dead was that they were going to have to likely use the time stone to reverse time and undo everything. It seemed like that was going to be the way they go, and that's exactly what pretty much happened. We used time travel because this was our only option for redemption. This was our hero's only option that they could pull off. And I love the aspect of, as they did this, as they split up into teams, we visited old Marvel films. I thought that was a really cool aspect of the movie. It almost reminded me of Back to the Future 2. There's even Back to the Future references in this movie, as Paul Rudd's Ant-Man brings up the movie a couple times, I believe. Now, everyone knows that the time travel is like the easiest storyline to nitpick for. So honestly, and especially it being a Marvel movie, this is something that at least I just accepted this going into the movie, and when I realized what the plan was going to be for, undoing Thanos's evil doings, I just decided to sit back and enjoy the ride, and not to nitpick any, time travel storylines. So I was just in. A major surprise in the movie was within the first, I guess, half hour, we see the beheading of Thanos. I was very surprised by this, even though, again, I said I knew that this was most likely going to go into a time travel direction. I was still very surprised to see the beheading of Thanos in the first minute that he was on screen. It was a big shocker that really it upped the film for me, for sure. It enhanced the storyline, and everyone was very shocked in my theater to see that happen. The team that's still intact, then they go and try to convince Tony Stark to come back, as he's living a quiet life with, Pepper Potts and their new daughter. They go to convince him to come back and help them save everyone, as Tony Stark is an absolute genius, and they need to devise a plan to do this. And they have the idea of going back in time, so they go and do everything they can to convince Tony, who's extremely hesitant at first in doing so. But he knows it's the right thing to do, that he has to go help and, bring back everyone that had, vanished and died, including his mentee, Peter Parker. Tony finally is convinced and decides he's going to help, and he actually is the one that heads up the plan of doing so, and figuring out what's possible and what they're able to do in order to go back in time and reverse this by collecting the 6 Infinity Stones. So the Avengers go off into groups. I guess it would be 6 groups, trying to find and retrieve each Infinity Stone in order to be able to, yield the gauntlet and undo the evils that Thanos has done, bringing everyone back to Earth as, alive and well as they were. The grouping setup was very interesting to me. it stuck out immediately, and I immediately asked the question, why are we putting both mortals on one team? It was Hawkeye and Black Widow, and I knew that from that moment that it was something was going to go bad. And of course we lost Black Widow as she sacrificed herself to gain the Soul Stone. As we saw, Thanos killed Gamora in order to retrieve in Infinity War. This was one of the very sad parts of the movie, and I was a little surprised. I thought it was going to go the other way. I thought we were going to end up losing Hawkeye in this film. Chris Hemsworth's performance as Thor, of course, was fantastic in this movie, as he's very depressed regarding the end of Infinity War, where he had the chance to kill Thanos by going for the head, and he had failed, and he feels completely responsible, that it was all on him, that all this happened, and that half of Earth, had vanished, or as we believe they have all died. So he feels very responsible for such, and it's very hard for him to deal with, as we see him drinking. He's often drunk throughout the movie, and I just have to say that as I stated before, this is a very somber movie, at least like pretty much halfway through. But seeing Fat Thor, the introduction of Fat Thor was absolutely hilarious, and I laughed out loud in the theater, as well as along with many other people. That was absolutely hilarious, and a lot of these, not a lot, all of the Marvel movies have their funny tropes in one way or another. This was absolutely hilarious for me. This was by far the funniest part of the movie. Hulk's storyline was pretty cool too. As we saw in Infinity War, Bruce Banner was having trouble summoning the Hulk, as he was afraid, I guess, because in the beginning he kind of got his ass kicked by Thanos, and he did not want to come out, so he was having some issues throughout the rest of Infinity War with that, stating to himself they were gonna have to figure something out. And I liked his performance and not performance, I guess his storyline in this film, as Bruce Banner was somehow stuck between, his character was stuck half between the Hulk and half between Bruce Banner. So he had the strength as well as uh, the intellect to just live that dynamic, and raises a lot of good that raises a lot of good opportunities for the Hulk going forward. I think honestly we could create a whole new Hulk movie out of just the state that the character is in now, in regards to Endgame. In our first episode, I mentioned that Captain Marvel was possibly going to be Stan Lee's final Marvel cameo, and that I was wondering if he would be featured in Endgame before he passed away, and we actually got to see Stan Lee's final cameo. It was a very quick one, but of course it made me smile, and there it was. Stan Lee's final cameo was in Endgame. So, in lieu of some sacrifices and losses, the Avengers team, or I guess individual teams, were able to retrieve all 6 Infinity Stones, and they were able to bring back everyone. With another snap, they were able to bring back everyone from the dead, which just gave way and started off the greatest superhero battle of all time, and that's not even debatable. This crushed the one in Infinity War as well as Civil War. Just seeing everyone come back from the dead was awesome. I absolutely the most characters, the most action. It was so hard to keep track of, everyone that was there and everything that was going on. It was completely over the top, but I loved every second of this superhero battle. Again, it was absolutely the greatest superhero battle in Marvel Cinematic Universe history. I was surprised with how absolutely emotionally invested I was in this film. I didn't really think it was going to hit me that hard, but this was honestly, Endgame was the end of an era in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's going to be completely different moving forward into Phase 4. This movie was very touching, even more than I thought it was going to be going in. And for a Marvel movie, I was very surprised at the level of sincerity there was. Captain America wielding Thor's hammer was one of the big parts in the epic battle that I just like to mention. That was just super awesome and was pure comic book fanfare for all the comic book fans that actually go to see these movies and have some knowledge of the actual comics. This was pure fanfare for them, and I like that they had that in there. Tony Stark in the end got to hold and wield the Infinity Gauntlet, and he was the one to save humanity as we knew it. And I figured it was going to be either him or Cap, honestly. And just when he got to his final words were "I am Iron Man," and that was epic. And he went out, he sacrificed himself for the better of humanity and to end Thanos and to end all of this. The world was saved and back to normal, but now, unfortunately, the next scene was Tony Stark's funeral. It was it was a very sad scene. Just all the Avengers and everyone he was really touched in his life was there. Unfortunately, including his very young daughter. But I'm wondering if we're going to see her pop out in future films in Phase Four. Cap in the end, he goes and hides the Infinity Stones in order for you know to wield off future chaos and these stones falling into the wrong hands again. Obviously, he split them up, and I think that's the last we're going to see of the Infinity Stones, at least for some time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But these two movies surrounding the stones and the Infinity Gauntlet were absolutely amazing for this cinematic universe. I didn't have too much knowledge of the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline before this, but after Infinity War, I made sure I read the Infinity Gauntlet, which immediately became my favorite comic book. This was a fantastic run between these two movies, and there was so much on the line. For once, I felt like these superheroes actually had something to lose, and seeing half of Earth just depleted was pretty crazy to see. These were the biggest stakes I've ever seen in a superhero movie. So this was just between these movies. It was a fantastic moment in the MCU. I absolutely love the wrap up of Captain America's storyline. Steve Rogers, as he after he hid the Infinity Stones, he went off and just lived a quiet life. We see with the love of his life. I'm blanking on the name, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but he went and found his girlfriend from the original film, and they lived a happy, long life together. And we see him return, and it's been a lifetime, but it seems like moments. But we see him return as an old man, and he wields and gives up the shield to our new Captain America, who is Sam, who plays Falcon. I'm very excited to see the passing of the Captain America mantle, and I'm excited. I know that there's going to be a new um, Sam and I guess Bucky Barnes series that I believe is going to be dropping on Disney, but I'm very excited to see if new Captain America movies featuring this character will be made. I'm sure they will be. Maybe in phase. I don't see it happening in Phase Four with the official rollout of the roster of films, but possibly in Phase Five after we see if the series is successful. But I certainly believe we'll see Falcon as the new Captain America in a film in the next at least decade. I enjoyed the end of the film. It was hard to see Tony Stark leave us. I absolutely loved the end of Steve Rogers. I loved his ending of his storyline there as he goes off and lives the quiet life that he wanted with his wife. And I like to see that Thor's going to team up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's going to make for a lot of humor and hopefully a couple good films moving forward. And I just liked everyone's. I liked that there were true stakes. That was the biggest thing I liked in this movie, that there were actual true stakes. And just, everyone didn't really live happily ever after again. Not everyone got the happy ending, as we lost Tony Stark and we lost Black Widow. So there were some casualties to this war. This war had some true consequences. and it was an absolute great wrap up to the this phase in this era of Marvel. All right, it's time for our categories. Who won the movie? I think this one goes without saying that he sacrificed his life to save our planet and our people, and he's been a fantastic leader and hilarious character throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the past 10 years. We're giving it to Tony Stark, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. You win the movie. In lieu of our Pantheon category, I just wanted to note that, this was a fantastic movie, and even though this was the redemption movie, I still have to say that I enjoyed Avengers Infinity War, last year's release, more than this one. Avengers Infinity War actually ended up being my favorite Marvel movie of all time. It was basically like the Empire Strikes Back of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It ended on such a down note, but it was just seeing all those characters together come together for the first time over 20 major characters together. It was absolutely amazing, and I thought Thanos' reasoning for doing what he was doing was one of the most genuine and evil uh, plots by a villain in quite some time. And I wasn't super into. I was way less into the Marvel films last year when I went to see Endgame with my buddies, Infinity War, and that I just did not know what to expect. I had no idea what I was walking into, and that movie absolutely blew me away. So I did love Endgame. I love how we're gonna close this chapter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I just have to say that I put Infinity War over this film for sure. All right, it's time for our film fact. This film, Avengers Endgame, was shot back to back with last year's Avengers Infinity War over a period of 200 days, which is a lot less than I would have ever expected it would take to do these two films back to back. Now I'll hit you with a bonus one. Avengers Endgame is the first movie to gross $1 billion in its opening weekend. All right, it's time for see, stream, or skip. As I stated before, this is the movie event of 2019 for most people, and I definitely say go as long as you're a little at least semi up on the Marvel films and have at least seen last year's Avengers Infinity War. Definitely go see this movie in theaters. It's a absolutely fun time, and I'm sure my theater wasn't the only one that was extremely rowdy with cheers and claps and just a bunch of laughing at appropriate times at least. But this is definitely a film you go see in theaters. These are the types of fun films that it's like an actual experience going into the theaters and enjoying it with a bunch of strangers. So absolutely, if you're going to see any movie this spring, definitely go see Avengers Endgame in theaters. All right, it is now time for our official exit music rating from 1 to 10. I'm going to go ahead and give Avengers Endgame a solid 8. It was action packed, it was emotional, and it was an absolute 3-hour ride. It was the end of an era, and they did a great job wrapping that era up. Solid 8, and you know what that means. We have a new Rosebud champion. Taking the belt from previous winner Us is Marvel's Avengers Endgame. You're now the movie to beat. You're the best running movie of 2019 at this time. And thus far, this being our third episode, we have yet to have a successful defending of the Rosebud Championship. So we will have to see how this plays out throughout the remainder of the year. Does Endgame have what it takes to successfully defend the belt for months to come? Will something coming up take it down and take its spot as the best running film of 2019? Guys, we have to just come back, tune in and see. We shall see. Anyways, coming attractions for what's ahead. Going into the summer, summer's always a big time to release movies. We, of course, have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is my most anticipated film of the year. Very excited to see the 9th film by Quentin Tarantino coming out this July. I believe Midsommar, Ari Aster's sophomore follow-up to Hereditary is coming out, I believe, in late June, early July. And looking ahead, I don't know exactly what else is going to be released this summer. A lot of big blockbusters, but none that I could absolutely say that, we will definitely have episodes on. So we shall see what is enticing enough to see in theaters summer 2019. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in once again. And remember, keep going to the movies.